There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers. A dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends. A place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view. But when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Good evening and welcome back to The Darkness on the Edge of Town. I really appreciate everybody tuning in this evening. We've got a very special guest with us, John Zaffis. Before we get into the show, though, I would like to make a few special mentions. First off, we have a really great new place for paranormal fans to gather. It's called myparaspace.com. And it's a fantastic online community that's been set up for like-minded people to share and explore the world of the paranormal. So feel free to visit them on the web at www.myparaspace.com. Also, I'd like to say hi to a few friends out there and plug their paranormal radio shows so that all of you listening can tune into alternate places during the week to get your spooky fix. John Savage here in Minnesota has a great radio show called The Other Side, and you can hear that by going to www.primepodcast.com. Again, that's primepodcast.com to hear John Savage on the other side. Then there's Todd Sheets, who has another amazing show called Night Watch, and you can access that by going to www.nightwatchshow.com. Then finally, we have Doug and Scott L. They are the very popular team on Ghostly Talk Internet Radio, and they can be heard by going to ghostlytalk.com. And another show I will suggest for you to check out is at www.paranormalpodcasts.com. I think you're going to find a great variety of topics and themes and personalities that you're going to love. So make sure you tune in. Let our friends know that you're listening to them. Also, I want to thank this evening the great people at Sideshow Incorporated for the fantastic collectibles and movie pieces that they do. They've donated a few items that we're going to give away this evening to some of the listeners that call in or email in questions. We'll open up the phone lines, 612-375-1400. We have a lot of questions for our guests this evening, and our guest, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is John Zaffis. Our special guest has over 30 years of experience studying and investigating the paranormal, and with us tonight he's going to share some of his first-hand paranormal experiences, some suggestions and ideas on how to go about paranormal investigating, and some of his dealings with the demonic and diabolical. Welcome, Mr. Zaffis.
Well, thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on the show with us. And I'll tell you what, people are excited about you being here with us tonight, John. We've got a massive amount of questions that have been emailed in this evening. We have opened up the phone line, so we'll be taking some phone calls as well. But getting into this, now you have a book out called Shadows of the Dark.
Yes.
And John was nice enough to donate an autographed copy of the book. So again, one of the emailers or callers this evening will select at the end of the show, and we'll be sending out the autographed copy of the book, so we'll thank you for that. It's a fantastic book, and can this be picked up anywhere, John?
The best way to get it is on Amazon.com.
Okay, Amazon.com. And the name of the book, again, is Shadows of the Dark. Now, you got involved in the field because of your relationship to the paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. What prompted your interest to kind of follow up in this field with them?
Well, growing up, I was very fortunate. I would always hear about, some of the most fantastic ghost stories. And did I always believe it? Not really. And when I was about 15 years old, I was, getting ready to go to bed, and I had a sighting at the foot of my bed. It was very transparent. It was very tall, and I was able to make out that it was a man that started shaking its head back and forth. And it was the middle of the week, so, I didn't know what to make of it, didn't know what to expect. Was I scared? Heck yeah. Ran downstairs, started telling my mom about it, and her reaction was, did it say or do anything? I said, well, just stood there and shook its head back and forth. And my mom got this blank look on her face, and she said, that was your grandfather. And I looked at her and I said, well, why are you saying that? And she says, well, we just never really talked about it. She says, but when my dad would be upset over something or something was wrong, he would shake his head back and forth. And she says, I know you really didn't know that because you were only 3 years old when he died. So that prompted me. That started really getting me going.
And how old were you at this point?
15.
Okay.
And that's when I said, okay, there has to really be something to all this stuff. I knew it was the middle of the middle of the week, and, it wasn't Friday or Saturday night. I wasn't partying. So I know I wasn't hallucinating anything. So, I started checking around, started reading things, started getting involved with going to haunted locations here in the New England area, started talking with more people. Then as time progressed, I started talking to my uncle, wanted to get involved with investigating haunted houses, wanted to know if these things were for real.
Now, your uncle is Ed Warren, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and, it tied in there and just got more involved with it, more in deep with it, and, I was fortunate. My uncle opened up doors to me that most people didn't have an opportunity to be involved with, a lot of the different things. Then I wanted to know, do people get possessed? I didn't believe it, never seen it, never experienced it. Then I took it a step farther and started studying and trying to understand demonology. And that encompassed getting involved with many, many different faiths, many different clergy, and it opened up another whole world of the paranormal that I was never exposed to.
Well, now, you bill yourself as a psychic researcher.
Paranormal researcher.
Or you're a paranormal. Okay, I was going to say, I thought it had mentioned in the book that you were a psychic researcher, but that's what I was curious about is what's the difference between a psychic researcher and a paranormal investigator, or are they essentially the same thing?
Well, it's basically the same thing.
Okay.
But I go under paranormal researcher for the fact of I'm a very big person on the word paranormal because it's the unknown.
Right.
And we're all out there studying it, trying to comprehend this bizarre world that we all get ourselves involved with. So, I go under that, and under that I study just about every aspect of the paranormal realm that I get tied or entangled in.
Okay.
So with that, the study of possession, being involved with people that are gifted or psychic, if you will, yes. Dealing with a lot of different clergy out there, absolutely. The roads that I travel, the things that I get involved with, take me into many, many different avenues. And what I find most intriguing about it is that I've learned to understand that with all the different religions and different belief systems, they all have the belief system in good and bad. You have a positive, you have a negative. Might be interpreted in different ways, and they might have different belief systems, but the bottom line is most people believe in the good and they do believe in the negative.
Sure. Now, one of the other things we'll try to cover later on in the show as well is you address possessed possessions or haunted possessions as well, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay, fantastic, because I know we have a couple questions directed to that. We'll take one of the questions here from our listening audience, and I'm not trying to pressure you to go fast. I'll just let you know we have a lot of questions to try to get through, so if we can't get through it tonight, hopefully we can have you back on. But Topher would like to know, he says, John, there are a lot of people listening that are interested in the paranormal. What kind of advice would you offer to those for getting into this field? And also, what kind of precautions and what kind of research should they do to prepare themselves for this line of work?
Once you get involved with this and you start delving into it, you're going to go into so many different aspects of it. And a lot of times when I talk to people, one of the key things is I always tell them, try to tie up with people that are in the field, that are, willing, to share their knowledge and share their information, which is a very, very key thing. You can read things. We're very fortunate today with the internet. There's just a tremendous amount of info out there. But getting involved hands-on is a very, very key factor. The other thing is it doesn't matter what your belief system is, as long as you believe in something on a positive, because I always tell people to protect themselves when they go to these haunted locations or they go into haunted homes.
And how do you protect yourself? What would you recommend for that?
Well, it depends on the person's belief systems.
Okay.
As long as it's on a positive and it's, something brought in to help protect them. Like I always say, and it's a running joke with me, I don't care if you worship a rock as long as it's on a positive.
Okay.
Because it's very, very key and very important. A lot of times I hear today people say to me, well, John, why do you always have to incorporate religion? It's not the fact of incorporating religion. You have people that believe in a very positive, powerful force, and they believe in negative.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, it doesn't matter. It's a person's belief system. And I always tell a lot of times I integrate with a lot of the organizations out there, and they, always just want to get, a lot of them like to just get involved with human spirit or ghost cases.
Sure.
They choose not to get involved with anything on a negative level, which is okay. But I always tell people, sooner or later, you're going to come up against this,
mm-hmm.
and you're going to get involved with it. A key thing to always learn to understand is that once you do enter these different aspects of this, what to look for, how to look for it, and try to head it off before it turns into a situation where it ends up destroying your organization, destroying friendships, because it does end up happening.
Sure.
So, the key thing is, a lot of times people will call me up and say, John, I've known you, I've dealt with you, I always didn't believe what you would say, but guess what? Here it is, I'm dealing with it. Can you help us out? Can you share some knowledge to be able to help us get through some of these things? So, those are your key things to try to understand them. And me, just like everybody else, I call it the hard knocks of school, that you get involved with these things, and as you get more and more intrigued, and the more you get involved with investigating into the paranormal, the more you realize with this, it is exactly that. It's the paranormal. It's the unknown. And it takes a lot of people, including myself,
mm-hmm.
being involved with it to learn to understand some of these things that we can't explain scientifically.
Okay. Now, Henry from Chicago emailed in. He has a question. When going out on a paranormal investigation, do you ever find that you or a member of your group may actually have a spirit tagging along with you that will contaminate the investigation that you're on, so that, in fact, the spirit that you're documenting has nothing to do with the site you're actually investigating?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. It's very important to be very aware of what is around you, learn how to understand what is a key factor when getting involved with doing investigations. You have to have yourself cleared. You have a lot of people today that come from hauntings. They come from their own types of situations, and they can and they will bring spirit along with them if they have an attachment. It's very, very important to be able to rule out the difference. And a lot of people don't understand that once you have a problem, you got to be extremely, extremely guarded. I always tell people that come from a lot of the different types of situations with hauntings to, please take that into consideration once they delve in, because they can and will influence our cases and our investigations. Then it makes it extremely difficult to try and decipher what is exactly happening on that investigation. Is it something that's coming along with another individual? And I mean, it can happen very innocently, where somebody's not trying deliberately, to taint an investigation. But does that happen? Absolutely. Does it taint the case? Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that question, Henry. For asking that question, we're going to send out to you the collectible Metaluna mutant 12-inch figure from Sideshow Inc. It's the mutant character from the movie This Island Earth. Right now, you're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show. Our very special guest this evening is Mr. John Zaffis. He's a paranormal investigator and author of the book Shadows of the Dark. We'll be right back with John and more questions right after this.
Adopting aliens and giving them good homes since 1953. Just don't tell our landlord.
E.T. phone home.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
It's Dave and Tim shacking up in the darkness on the edge of town.
I'm Teresa from White Bear Lake, and I needed to refinance my home and do it fast. I contacted a lot of mortgage companies that made promises and commitments that they just couldn't keep. Then I was referred to Keith Troutman. Keith was knowledgeable and worked fast. He listened to what I needed, and within 7 days, we closed on my loan. Other companies promised to save me up to $500 a month. Keith, however, found a program that was right for me and saves me over $1,300 a month. I would recommend Keith Troutman and Tri-Minnesota Mortgage to anyone.
Thanks, Teresa. This is Keith Troutman, president and owner of Tri-Minnesota Mortgage, and no matter what your situation is, we're here for you. We locate financing programs other brokers cannot. Most lenders use 10 to 20 investors to fund their loans. We have a national investor base of over 70 that ensures you'll get the best loan program available to meet your needs. Call me today at 952-223-5000. I know I can help. Right now, with qualifying loans, we are sending you on a 7-day cruise for 2. Certain restrictions apply. Check out our website at cruiseatclose.com for more details, or call 952-223-5000. That's 952-223-5000.
This is Dave Schrader from the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show. Each week, we delve into the web of the unknown and deal with a lot of scary subjects. But nothing makes my blood run colder or scares me more than dealing with technology. That's why we turn to the experts when we wanted our website for the show set up and maintained. In the studio with me is Don Raleigh, owner of Evolve Systems. Don and his exceptional staff were easy to work with and made setting up our site a breeze. Don, what is it that sets you apart from other web developers?
Well, Dave, we make your business visions come to life by creating, maintaining, and hosting all of your internet needs. We do this by listening to our clients. We offer programs and price plans to fit any budget. And Dave, I mean any budget. Call us at 651-628-4000 and put us to work for you.
Call Don at Evolve Systems, 651-628-4000. I did, and I couldn't be happier with the results.
That's because we take the ugh out of technology, Dave. Call us today at 651-628-4000 or visit us on the web at www.evolve-systems.com, serving the entire United States. That's Evolve Systems, helping you to manage change. Cheers.
If you read Taps Paramag every month, you'll be able to tell the difference between the absurd
could not go to work because Bigfoot stole my car
and the creepy. Taps Paramag takes you where few would ever go on purpose. From exclusive interviews with the cast of The Ghost Hunters to the latest trends in technology in the field of the paranormal. To join our journey, order at tapsparamag.com.
When Dave was a young boy, he once awoke to find himself staring directly into the eyes of a shadow person. Turns out it was just his life-size cardboard cutout of Donny Osmond.
Go away, little girl. Go away, little girl.
Welcome back to the darkness on the edge of town.
Good evening and welcome back to the Darkness on the Edge of Town. This is Dave Schrader along with Tim Dennis and our very special guest this evening, Mr. John Zaffis. And John is a paranormal investigator and has been for, going on over 30 years, is it, John?
33 years this year.
33 years. He's also authored a book called Shadows of the Dark, which is a book that talks about a lot of your experiences that actually occurred, correct?
Yes, it does.
Fantastic. Before we went to the break, you were mentioning about having spirits maybe tag along with you. Is there a way to cleanse or clear them before you even get on with your investigation?
One of the key things is for each individual to do what is very comfortable for them, whatever the circumstances bring forth, to be able to protect themselves and clear themselves. Here again, too, you have to be careful. We all get tricked.
Sure.
And a lot of times, you can and might have something that might be attached with you or around you. But after a while, when you're involved with this, you usually have your telltale signs of letting you know if there is a possibility that you have some energies that are around you. And most people are quite aware if they've been in it for a while and realize that they're going to, in detail, and encounter these different types of things that we all go through at different points with the investigations.
Fantastic. Now, we have opened up the phone lines. It's 612-375-1400 if you have any questions for John Zaffis. And right now, we're going to take a call on line 2 from Josh, who has a question for you. Josh, are you with us?
Hey, hi, this is Josh.
Josh, go ahead with your question for John.
Hey, John, I'm wondering, when you're investigating these things, have any of you or your investigators ever like encountered like a physical presence, something like an attack, something that was more than just a feeling or a presence or an energy, but so like, you know, something that was like actually physical that happened to you guys?
Oh, over the years with a lot of the different investigations, absolutely. I mean, it is not an uncommon thing that when you get involved with these, we know our preliminaries when we go to do an investigation. But what you will encounter on a site, you try to prepare yourself for it. You know, to be touched or pushed or, you know, a common thing that occurs with me and is a clear verification is that I always seem to be tapped on top of the head. I've had, this happens each and every time, and the comical thing with that is, with me, is I'll be doing an interview a lot of times with the people, and a lot of times I get that little, like, you know, fluff that'll occur on top of my head. And one thing that, you know, does occur and does happen a lot of times, some people can get burning sensations, some people can get scratched, and these are these throw up red flags with me that you got to be very, very cautious with these types of situations, because you don't necessarily want something attaching itself to an individual when you're leaving the investigations.
Now, are spirits capable of hurting you, or is it just inhuman spirits?
The majority of the time, I will find that it's usually something on a negative level that will occur these types of things to happen. Normally, with human spirit, they do not have the capability to be able to cause, you know, harm to individuals. Can they attach to them? Absolutely. Can they make their presence known? Yes. You know, but the majority of the time when you're dealing with human spirit, they're not going to have the capability to be able to cause a tremendous amount of harm on an individual. It's usually something on a negative level that will do that.
Well, most of the time the spirits are usually there to, you know, relatives or people that were part of the house anyway. They don't really want to hurt you, do they? I mean, they're there trying to communicate maybe with you to share what's going on or what problem they have or what unresolved issue, but they're not out to strike you or try to hurt you.
No, you know, when you're dealing with human spirit cases, you know, when they try to establish, you know, that communication, we're so fortunate today, you know, from a scientific approach. I mean, you know, I'm an old dinosaur when it comes to a lot of these things, but I have a lot of young people that work with me. And when they have a lot of the different equipment and different things and they set it up and they can prove out things to me, you know, where a communication was established and they got a phenomenal EVP. Well, that's great. And we got some fantastic evidence. But I still go back to the root of it. Okay, what are they trying to tell us? What is it they're trying to convey?
Right.
So I go steps beyond where I want more information. I want to know what this can in detail. Why did they choose that one particular researcher to communicate with? Why is that person getting the EVPs? Or why is this one individual getting the psychic photography? See, these are very, very key things that come into play that still intertwine within the investigations. There must be a reason why they're trying to communicate with that one individual, say, out of 5 people that are on that investigation.
Sure, that makes sense.
So, you know, from that perspective, I try to look at it. But I know, you know, from a lot of different situations I've been involved with researchers getting involved, and they'll say, well, gee, John, I got scratched. I got this black-hooded figure around. I can't sleep. I can't eat. You know, this is telling me we're dealing with something a little bit more on a negative level.
Sounds like a demonic diet plan. I can't eat. I can't sleep.
Absolutely. You know, these are key factors.
Sure.
And, you know, they come very, very strongly in play on to these things that individuals get involved with.
Okay. We also have a question here from Margaret in Connecticut. Sounds like she might have a little problem. Maybe you can help her out with here. She says, "Hi, John. I wanted to ask you your opinion on the spirits of young children. There are so many conflicting opinions as to whether young spirits exist or whether they are actually demonic forces trying to weaken the defenses of those inhabiting the house. Do you believe a child can be a spirit?" And the reason she asks this is because she has a child spirit in her house on and off for a year. Nothing demonic in nature occurred, no weird sounds, smells, or other activity, just a little girl speaking to us now and then. And a neighbor sees her occasionally in our front window, as well as sees a light go on and off at odd hours of the night. She was here for the first 8 months of 2005. Then we never heard from her again. But then a week ago, she was awake with her youngest at about 3 a.m. and heard someone open and close a bedroom door and move out into the hallway. When she looked, no one was there. After a moment, she heard a young girl speak, but she couldn't make out the actual words.
That sounds like a human spirit case, most definitely. Now, when it comes into children, you have to remember they're very, very open and they're very in tuned. And if you're dealing with a child spirit, it will try to connect. That is a most positive aspect with some of these things. Most children's spirits are very, very confused. And it's a running joke, and I say this, no matter how much I get involved with this, we know how kids are. They're rambunctious. They're running all over. They're confused in life. Just think what they're like in the spirit world.
Sure.
It's very, very, very difficult when you deal with that type of situation. A lot of times what I recommend, and I deal with a lot of parents, is that, when these things do occur and they do happen, it could be a simple fact of just letting that spirit know that it is no longer alive, that it has to cross over and go to the light or whatever your belief system is, and it needs to move on and be with its parents, its grandparents, or its deceased loved ones. That's a very, very key factual thing. Another thing that's very important is people have to realize they have to take charge of their home. We can go in. We can give you all the advice in the world, but 99% of the time, it has to come from the individuals that live in those homes to be able to help that spirit to cross over, providing we are dealing with human spirit.
Okay. All right. We've got another call here on the line for you, John. His name is Tim. Tim, are you with us?
Hey, hi, Dave.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my question is, I'm listening right now live, and you said there's a difference between human spirits and demonic spirits, and that's really hard for me to believe. I'm okay with humans dying and becoming spirits, but sorry, I don't know how to phrase the question, but what evidence do you have that there's actual demonic spirits? I mean, it sounds funny, but I'm okay with ghosts of humans, but kind of hard to understand demons. Can you explain that?
Sure can, or I'll try. When we deal with these different types of things, human spirit are usually what we refer to, or most people do, as ghosts. When you encounter or you start dealing with the things on the negative level or the demonic level, you have to remember these were never human spirits. These are things that were devised and created, if you will. And I'm trying to keep it in a sense that you can try and understand part of that. I always didn't believe in it myself until I got involved with it and seen what individuals going through. It's a very, very hard thing to understand if you've never been around people that have gone through it, people that deal in these types of things. It's a world that is just so complex and bizarre.
Sure.
When you deal with this and you try to comprehend it and deal with it, it just gets into something very, very difficult for most people to understand. So I know exactly what you're saying. In my perspective, it affects people in most ways that people don't understand unless you go through it.
Okay.
And the key factor is to just try to understand it. And don't get me wrong, my key function is with a lot of this is to go in and rule out things that some people feel that when you're dealing with spirit, it's all negative, and I don't necessarily believe that. A lot of times I could be dealing in a case and be involved with a case, and my findings will be at the end result that we could be dealing with human spirit and has nothing to do with a negative whatsoever.
Okay, well, that kind of leads us into the next question Sheila Cave has for us from online. She mailed in and said, John, can you tell us what the differences are in demons and diabolical spirits as opposed to regular human spirits that have not found their way to the afterlife? And furthermore, she also would like to know, she said, you've watched on TV and read in books that demons can actually hold captive in homes and buildings, sometimes several spirits for decades, and not allow them to leave. Do you believe there's any truth to this, and if so, why?
Yes, I do definitely believe that. Spirit attracts spirit in these different types of buildings, and they can have the power to overrule certain types of situations. But what I find in most cases when they're a demonic or a negative case, you're mainly dealing with what is a negative to begin with. It will disguise itself. So we have to be extremely careful when we deal with that. It will do everything it can to win your confidence over to get you to actually think that you're dealing with a ghost or a human spirit. So those get very, very interesting, and they can get very, very complex when you start dealing with them. And, a key thing you have to remember is...
So demons can actually hold other spirits, they can even fool other spirits and then hold them in a place?
It's not necessarily that they can fool them, but they can have, depending on the level of the intensity and the power that is associated, yes, with that particular demonic spirit, where it can do things like that. But they eventually have to let the human spirit be released. Okay, those are types of situations that are very rare where that can be done. Okay, normally, on a normal level and a normal circumstances, but I have been proven wrong on this one, that they can hold human spirit captive. But there are ways, and it can be done to be able to release that human spirit. But a lot of times, I have found in my research, when these types of situations are occurring, it is that you're dealing with spirit, human spirit, that has chosen to stay on the earth plane. And it can go into so many different variables why this is occurring.
Okay. Real quickly before we go into the next break here, is there a difference between demons and diabolical spirits, or are they pretty much the same thing, just interchangeable?
Well,
names?
when you're dealing with demons, they are usually on a lower level. When you start going a little bit higher, talking about the word diabolical, that encompasses basically the realm of quote-unquote demonology. And there are different levels of the demonic, just like there are the choirs of the angels.
Okay. All right, great. Well, you're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show. This evening, our special guest is paranormal research investigator John Zaffis, also co-author of the book Shadows of the Dark. John Zaffis and Brian McIntyre wrote that. You can pick it up on Amazon. We'll be right back after this.
It will keep you on the edge of your seat.
I must have drank me about 15 Dr. Peppers.
I gotta pay. Just don't get any on the floor. Hurry back. There is more to come from the Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Try Minnesota Mortgage was founded on one simple principle: to be your complete mortgage resource. Keith Troutman and the experts at Try Minnesota Mortgage will assist you with all your needs. They've built a reputation for client satisfaction and are devoted to making the mortgage process as easy as possible. You get to work with a broker that understands your needs. Finding the right loan is only the beginning. Try Minnesota Mortgage will assist you every step of the way to ensure smooth sailing with personal one-on-one help. I'm Dave Schrader, the host of Darkness on the Edge of Town. When I bought my new home, I turned to Keith Troutman to help me. He made what could have been a very stressful time easy and painless. He was considerate and realizes that this is more than just a job to him. It's the future for you. I recommend them to my friends, and I'm happy to recommend them to you. To take the first step to a financially free tomorrow, call 952-223-5000 or visit them on the web at cruiseatclose.com. For a fresh start, no matter what your current situation, call Keith at Try Minnesota Mortgage. That's 952-223-5000. As Keith says, it's your money. Keep more of it. That's Try Minnesota Mortgage, 952-223-5000.
Howdy, this is Don Raleigh from Evolve Systems. Evolve Systems can't help you lose weight. We don't know anything about diamonds, and we can't help you save a boatload of money on your car insurance. What we can do is help you with your merchant processing. We work with small businesses to provide credit card processing, debit card processing, gift cards, and check acceptance. Whether you need a point-of-sale system, a credit card terminal, or want to accept payments over the internet, Evolve Systems will work with your small business to find the right solution for your merchant processing needs. Ask us how you can get a free copy of QuickBooks 2006. You can reach us at 651-628-4000 or on the internet at www.evolve-systems.com. Now you have a friend. Well, not yet, but give us a call at 651-628-4000 and we can chat. Evolve Systems, where we help you to manage change. This is Don Raleigh. Cheers.
If you read Taps Para Mag every month, you'll be able to tell the difference between the absurd
Could not go to work because Bigfoot stole my car.
and the creepy. Taps Para Mag takes you where few would ever go on purpose. From exclusive interviews with the cast of The Ghost Hunters to the latest trends in technology in the field of the paranormal. To join our journey, order at tapsparamag.com.
This show is so frightening, it'll scare the pants off you.
Beat it. It's people with a dirty mind that think like that.
On second thought, maybe you should just keep them on.
You'd be amazed how often I hear that.
Welcome back to The Darkness on the Edge of Town with Tim Dennis and Dave Schrader.
Good evening and welcome back. This is Dave Schrader, your host, along with co-host Tim Dennis on the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show. This evening, our very special guest is John Zaffis. He's a paranormal researcher and co-author of the book Shadows of the Dark. Thank you for joining us this evening, John.
You're very welcome.
We've got a bunch more questions I want to get through here, so we're going to enter the speed round now. And if you're a winner, you could win a year's supply of Rice-A-Roni. John, are you ready?
All set.
Okay. How does possession occur?
Possession usually occurs from a person opening up doors, and it can be done extremely innocently. You know, a lot of people feel that, gee, it's just the Ouija board. You play with the Ouija board and you open up those doors.
Right.
But it can be something so very, very innocently that is done. A person can go get a psychic reading. Someone could be having a tarot reading. Somebody could be playing with the Ouija board. Someone can be doing a seance. And a lot of times, once the doors are opened and established into the spirit world, things can and do occur. And it doesn't happen to everybody, but there are the certain individuals that does occur. One way or another, a lot of times you find when these things occur, a door somehow, innocently or provoked, had been opened, and this can cause these people to have this spirit enter their lives and cause them havoc and actually break down their free will, where they can start having things enter into their lives and into them that can result in a person being actually possessed.
Okay. So do you recommend staying away from things like Ouija boards, tarot card readings, psychic readings?
Well, a lot of times, you know, I try to understand a lot of times when people get themselves involved with doing this and opening themselves up to that, it's because they're trying and they're seeking out information.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily always mean because someone had gone to get a psychic reading that I'm going to down that or say that these people are doing something on a negative. No.
Sure.
A lot of times it depends on the individual themselves that had gone for that basically opened up the doors.
Okay. Can you perhaps pray to whatever religion that you believe in afterwards to protect you, coat you in light, bathe you in the blood of Christ, whatever your religious conviction is, to then, after you've had this experience, to try to protect yourself afterwards?
Oh, absolutely.
And will that close the door for them?
A lot of times it can.
Okay.
And a lot of times it will do that. Like I've always said, and it came from, just being involved with this and experiencing this. It doesn't matter what the person's denomination is. You call in on the positive.
Sure.
And all different belief systems have a prayer system. And I'm a very, very strong, firm believer in the power of prayer.
Okay. How often do actual possessions occur nowadays?
Well, it's amazing because I have to sit back, and it's very hard for me to answer a question like that because I've been involved with it for so many years, integrate with so many different levels of things that it's, not an unusual thing for me to be involved or hear about a possession case. But, they're not very, very common. I mean, a lot of people that get involved with this, I just happen to intermingle with so much of it because of my involvement in the work. I think we hear a little bit more openly of what people have gone through. You'll hear more today. I'll hear more people tell me, John, 20 years ago I had to have an exorcism done, and I'll go, yeah.
Right.
To me, it's just not something that it's something that I don't hear about quite often.
Okay. So do you think that there's more of a rise of it nowadays, or is it just because people are feeling a little bit more open to talk about it?
I think it's that people talk more about it. Do I think that there has been a rise with it? Yes. I do have to say yes to that.
Okay.
But I think people are more knowledgeable on what to look for today.
How often, though, do you think possession is more of a misdiagnosed mental condition?
It does happen. And I've been involved with situations where people, even on the medical level, will find that, there's a legitimate excuse why that person's hearing voices, why they're not eating.
Mm.
And, those are things that have to be ruled out. It's very, very important to rule those things out.
Do you recommend them to psychologists or psychiatrists before you actually try to do an exorcism?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, because, here again, we know for a fact that, when people are in their 30s, that they will go through a lot of different changes. And a lot of people in their 30s are diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar. We know this to be a proven out scientific fact. So, all these things are very important. And another thing that on my end is important too is that I hope, and it doesn't always happen that way, that you have the advantage or you're lucky enough to be able to talk to, the psychologists or the doctors that are involved with this. And a key thing I always look for too is they'll say to me, John, off the record, I don't know what to make of this. I don't know why this is happening. We've tried everything we could possibly do from a medical perspective, all different medications, but nothing is working. That's what I look for.
Okay. All right. Now, Rick Lindy from Des Plaines, Illinois, emailed in this question. Are the entities that possess always demonic in nature? And have you ever had to come up against Satan himself, or are they usually a lower demon?
It's a running joke with me here again.
Okay.
If Satan ever comes forth, I'm running. All right? That you're talking the highest of archy And he really does not want to be exposed or have himself brought forward. We deal a lot with the lower archees of these types of situations. And no, does it always have to be demonic? No. There are people that do have the ability to channel through human spirit. But here again, it's something that I'm very, very guarded with.
Okay.
And you got to be very careful, because once you open yourself up to letting spirit channel through you, here again, eventually some of these individuals will and indeed come up against something on a negative. So you have to be extremely guarded and very, very careful when you cross into those types of situations.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that question, Rick. And because of that question, we're going to award you from Sideshow. We've got the beautiful 12-inch collectible character of the Hunchback from Notre Dame with Lon Chaney's character version of it that's made by Sideshow. And again, you can visit Sideshow Inc. by going to sideshowinc.com. The next question, let's get right to the meat and potatoes of the night here, John, because we know people like to be afraid, and it's almost bedtime for a lot of our listeners. So Tommy Cottle emailed into us, and she wants to know, Mr. Zaffis, what's the most disturbing case you've ever worked on so far and that you're able to talk about?
Well, there's just so many different things that I look at from a perspective of trying to decipher that. And there's two cases. One is the haunted funeral parlor, and that case, dates back 18 years now. And there was a book done on it. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank with the name of the book. You believe this? Anyways, there was a documentary done on it, and it airs very, very frequently on the Discovery Channel, called A Haunting in Connecticut.
Okay.
And that was really one of my first encounters with something up on the hierarchy. And it was an extremely big turning point, because, I was involved with the case for 9 weeks. We spent a tremendous amount of time on that case. And that was where I came face to face where, I knew whatever occurred that night. And at that point in time, confronting it, and trying to understand why that occurred and why everything transpired.
Now, was that in your book, Shadows of the Dark?
Yeah, there was a brief story in there, and it's called the Carmen and Al Snedeker case.
Okay.
I believe the title of the short story we did was A Haunted Funeral Parlor, I think is what we called it.
Okay. But it's not a short story in the true sense of it just being a fun little story. It's an actual true case that you work with.
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us a little bit about what was the scary part about it? I mean, what was involved in this?
Well, it was a tremendous case where the people were being attacked. They had all kinds of things occurring in their home. They called us in to do an investigation in the home. And there again, that was one of those types where there was no one that didn't walk away afflicted or altered by dealing with that. When I say I dealt with something up on the hierarchy, and the best way I can describe those things is putting them from a 1 to a 10, I either hit an 8 or a 9 on that case.
Wow.
And
what type of events were occurring to you?
What had occurred was that I was documenting things sitting at the dining room table, had got up from the table, walked into the hallway, and looked up the staircase, and something very grotesque had actually formed. It was transparent, and it had a lot of mucky colors to it. And it had, the only way I was able to describe it was it had like thousands and thousands of wings flapping behind it. And at that point, that was very altering for me. Did I get scared? Heck yeah. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know what to expect next. And at that point, the only thing I thought of is I wanted my keys because I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to go home. And it wasn't so much the fear factor for John as at that point, my wife was home with 3 little children. So I was petrified that something might be occurring at the home since it appeared to me on the staircase. I got home, everything was perfectly fine. There was no experiences here whatsoever. But I made a choice that night. I wanted nothing to do with this stuff ever again. I never wanted to see this stuff. I never wanted to expose myself to it. At that point, I refused all phone calls, would not talk to anybody. But anybody in tied in with that whole situation always knew there was this one bishop, Bishop McKenna. If he ever called me, I would never refuse phone calls from this man.
Sure.
He had called and he said, John, we don't even know what happened, why you fled, what the circumstances were. So I explained everything to him, and I call him Bish. I go, Bish, why me? Why did I have to confront this thing? Why did this have to happen to me? I said, now I no longer want to do this work. You know, if somebody's got demons in their house, they're on their own.
Yeah.
You know, let them call somebody else. And
call those roto-rooter guys, right?
You know, it's like, yeah, Jason and Grant will go in with no problem whatsoever. Right. My buddies will go right in there.
Good.
But you know, he was a very interesting individual. He still is today. And his words of wisdom were to me, John, are you going to let it win? And I said, what do you mean? He said, basically, that was done to scare you so that you would never get involved with this. You would never be involved with helping people. And he says, are you going to let it win? Well, you don't put a challenge up to me like that. Did I go back? Yes.
Excellent.
And was I afraid? You better believe I was afraid. I didn't know what to expect.
Sure.
But I knew the exorcism was scheduled. It was sanctioned by the Roman Catholic Church and was to be performed shortly after that. And, you know, here again, those are types of things in our field, when you come up against them, you just don't forget them. They stay with you.
Sure.
And they linger there. They just never go away.
I have a quick question here. We've got only about 2 minutes left in the show, but I thought we should address this. It says, this is from Karina in Georgia. She says, I used to be into very black magic. I was a host for a demonic-type parasite, and I'm not really sure exactly what it was, but it was definitely not good or friendly. I guess my question is, how exactly do you go about living a normal life after that?
You don't. Unfortunately, and if anybody tells you you can, I would disagree with them. Once you let these things enter into your life, and she was host to something of a magnitude of letting it take her over, you have to continuously stay on guard 24/7, because it will wait for the right opportunity to enter your life, and it will come back tenfold. I've dealt with a tremendous amount of people that have chose to get out of doing what they were doing, and it was one heck of a fight. And I always tell them, you have to continue to fight, and you always will. That's just part of what happens with this work.
Where can people go to get help from you, John, if they have questions and things that they need answers for?
Yeah, the easiest access to me is just type in www.johnzaffis.com. That takes you into all my websites, and my telephone number is there. Very accessible. You could send me an email, and me or someone involved with the organization will get back to you and try to help you the best way we can.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me on.
John Zaffis. We appreciate it. And John, we'd love to have you back in the future if you have time for us.
Anytime.
Great. And John is the co-author of the book Shadows of the Dark. You can also visit his other website at prsne.com. You're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show. I'm Dave Schrader, your host, along with Tim Dennis, the co-host and producer. I'd like to thank Sideshow Incorporated for the excellent donations, and please do visit them on the web for all of your collectible needs at sideshowinc.com. Next week, we have a very special show for you. Robert Baca is going to be with us. He's a very gifted medium, and this show is one that you will want to make sure that you tune in for, so put it in on your calendars. He works very much like John Edward and can communicate with spirits of the loved ones that have crossed over. He can also see futures and past events. We'll be taking your calls, so tune in. Thank you very much for listening to The Darkness on the Edge of Town. This is Dave Schrader, and you're listening to AM 1470 KLBB, Brooklyn Park.